People who cut off their family, what did they to you? My mother used to beat the shit out of me on a daily basis. Lashed out for no reason than me being a child. Woke me up in the middle of the night to give me cold showers because I did something she judged to be out of line. It was really BS reasons most of the time. Put my face in garbage full of maggots because I forgot to tie the garbage bag before putting in the bin. Mind you, I was still a child. She always did this when no one was home, and I was so afraid to say anything that my sister and dad didn't know it was happening until I told them a few years ago. I'm 29 now, with BPD, PTSD, and anxiety because of all of this. I'm still struggling with all the emotions I lived during my childhood. To this day, she still doesn't understand why I don't want anything to do with her. She still calls my sister to get her to convince me to get in contact with her. My sister hasn't nagged me with this since she found out what happened. Now I'm living with my GF, who is the most wonderful and loving person ever. I'm glad I don't live in fear anymore. My sister cut me off when I asked if she was engaged. Apparently it was incredibly rude and I ruined her engagement. The reason I asked, her and her boyfriend were taking a big trip. We had talked for months about the possibility that he would propose on the trip. 2 weeks before they left, he showed her the ring he bought her. On the trip she posted a picture of a dinner and she had a big shiny diamond on her left ring finger. But I'm the asshole for asking. Edit, I have no idea what the logic behind this is. Why whole family can't figure it out. But let me give you some context. I have a social media account but never use it. Like ever. Her and my brother were having a pretty heated debate. My husband asked a pretty neutral question trying to clarify something she said. He wasn't a part of the conversation. She started insulting him, blocked him and blocked me who wasn't part of the conversation nor had even been on it in years, but she still has my brother who was the target of the heated debate. My cousin, still a 12-year-old child at this point, lost both her parents and the family had to help her sell her parental house. Long story short, one of my aunts secretly sold the house without telling anyone and kept the profit, $250K, for herself. Everyone thought the house was still up for sale until the real estate agent informed my cousin's actual guardian, a different aunt, that my other aunt had sold the house and he thought it was sketchy. Good news though, my aunt was sued, had to pay everything back and the $250K was directly deposited into my cousin her bank account and my aunt received an additional $50K fine she had to pay my cousin and guardian aunt for emotional damage. We do not speak about this aunt anymore. Stepdad raised me from when I was 3. The primary thing I remember about him is fear. He was okay a lot of the time, but when something set him off he was really quick to anger, a snarl flashing across his face and his cheeks turning red and he'd come at me. He wouldn't do much physically, the belt a few times, but he'd corner me and rant at me for hours. I don't remember a lot of specific incidents because I got good at disassociating, but the one that sticks out vividly is when I wet the bed and he grabbed me by the neck and stuck my face into it and told me he was going to train me like a dog. Even when he was in a good mood he was a deeply unpleasant person to be around. He'd sit me down and lecture me for hours with talking points from AM radio, highlights like women are going to steal your money and suck you dry, there's black people and then there's etc. while I looked out the window and wished I was anywhere else. When I turned 18 my mom left him and he told me he didn't want to see me again because I reminded him of my mom. I still thought of him as my father and tried to reconnect during college, but he said my Christmas card was a weak effort, and at that point I decided to just continue my life without him. A decade later we met at my sister's wedding and within the first 5 minutes he said, "Wow, I thought you were trying to get in better shape, well I guess you finally got a decent job, took you long enough," and then started ranting about trans people using women's bathrooms. I was cordial enough to avoid a scene at my sister's wedding, but it reaffirmed that I have no desire to have a relationship with him. Since then he bled his mother dry of money when she had breast cancer and then sued his siblings for a bigger share of her inheritance. They don't speak to him anymore. My siblings, his biological children, still have a relationship with him, but he's working on alienating them too. He told my sister she was not cut out to do anything besides secretarial work. She ignored him and is now very successful. He scammed $20,000 off my brother in a loan he's unlikely to repay. The last time he went to visit them he saw a car double parked outside a pizza shop and made a detour to run inside and start yelling about it. Says he's not going to hold back anymore, going to give everyone a piece of his mind. Talking about getting a gun. I guess he's contemplating dying alone, so he's texted me for the first time in a decade to tell me that I'm a shitty person and I owe him for Boy Scouts or whatever when I was a kid. Also said he was only playing my dad. Which, fuck it, I'm happy to say at this point I was only playing his son. Mom and Dad killed my dog. They live on a farm, begged for her because she was an Australian Shepherd and belonged in a farm. She was great and happy for a couple months. Fast forward another couple months, my wife and I haven't seen my parents on about a month, and in passing they mentioned she had gotten sick but is doing great, that they took her to the vet and everything is fine now. And we would see them and the dog the following week when we go to the beach as a family. Approximately 2 days later I see a picture of her in the background of one of their horses and she looks off. I call my parents and say what's going on. They say she's not looking good and won't make it to the beach next weekend, so I get up, drive 3 hours, go get the dog. My wife takes her to the emergency vet that night while I stay with the kids. They drain 10 pounds of fluid from her stomach. She has multiple portosystemic shunts in her liver. Found out my parents took her to the vet, told the vet it would be too expensive to treat her, $1,200. We end up spending about $10,000. They were unable to save her in the end, but said if treated earlier it wouldn't have been a problem. My mom and dad tries to gaslight my wife and I, scolding us saying it's our fault. Partly is for letting them take her. Never asked to see how the dog is, or even made it. Now they haven't tried contacting my children, or I, for the last 1.5 years. There's more to the story and everything, but I doubt anyone made it this far.